All right, so now we're looking at the area of triangles, trapezoids, and rhombi, just kind of lumping them all together here. They actually are fairly related to one another. So here, um, here, this is a rectangle, right? And we know that a rectangle is length times width or base times height. Well, if I do this, suddenly I have two triangles. So now if I do the formula for the area of a triangle, it's 1/2 of base times height, because by looking at this diagonal, I now have made this rectangle into two equal triangles. So that's why for a triangle, if I have my base and my height, notice the perpendicular nature, I have that the area is equal to 1/2 the base times the height. That's always going to be true, but again, make sure that you don't say that this is the height, because it's not. That's just some side of the triangle. The height and the base are always perpendicular. Now, for a trapezoid, it's a little bit different, but actually notice here, if you ever get stuck, you can turn this into two triangles and one rectangle, which is pretty cool. Or you can make it into two triangles. So the formula for a trapezoid is actually very similar. It's going to be 1/2 the height. Now notice there are two bases here. So it's not 1/2 base times height. It's going to be 1/2 height times the first base plus the second base. We add these two values, multiply by half of the height, and we get our formula, get our area. Now for rhombi, again, if we have if we have a square, that's a rhombus, but it's also a rectangle. So if we use that length times width formula, that base times height, that's fine. For a rhombus, there's a better way that we can do it, and it looks more complicated than it is. This is going to be 1/2 of these two diagonals. So if I look, I have this diagonal AC, so 1/2 of AC, times this right here, BD. So the area of a rhombus is going to be 1/2 of the product of the two diagonals. And let's look at some examples now. So here we go. We want to find the area of each. We have a triangle, we have a parallelogram, we have a triangle, we have a trapezoid, and we have two rhombi. So let's take a look at this. So here we can see that we actually have the base and we have the height. We know that to be the case because these are perpendicular to one another. So the area is equal to 1/2 of the base times the height. So the area is equal to 1/2 of the base, which is 7.9, times the height, which is 3.5. And if I do 7.9 times 3.5 times 1/2, I'm going to get that the area for this first problem there is equal to 13.825, so 13.83. And again, we're talking about area, so meters squared. Now the second one here, this is again a trapezoid. So the formula is going to be area is equal to 1/2 of the height times base 1 plus base 2. So that means that the area is going to be 1/2. Here we can see the height is 4 because it's perpendicular to one base, meaning it's going to be perpendicular to the other base as well. And then we multiply that by the sum of the two bases. So that's going to be 5 plus 1.6. So 5 plus 1.6 is 6.6. And if we multiply that, we can multiply these in different orders. I'm going to show you that, break this apart and say, all right, 1/2 of 4 is 2, and 5 plus 1.6 is 6.6. So if we multiply these together, we get that the area is equal to 13.2 kilometers squared. Again, area has that square unit. So here you can see not that bad. It may seem a little bit annoying to try and remember this formula, but once you have that down, it's really easy. And then finally we have this rhombus. Now remember, the formula for the area of a rhombus is going to be 1/2. I'm going to say that this is diagonal 1 times diagonal 2. Here we can see that this diagonal is a distance of 10, and this diagonal is a distance of 8. So it's going to be equal to 1/2 of that first diagonal, which is 10, times the second diagonal, which is 8. So this is half of 80, or 40. Now there are no units, so I'm just going to leave this as 40 and call it a day. But if it were inches, I say inches squared or whatever. And then finally, we have this. So this diagonal there is 14, and this diagonal there is 10. So we get that the area is equal to 1/2 of diagonal 1 times diagonal 2. So the area is equal to 1/2 of diagonal 1, which is 14, times 10. So that's going to be half of 140, or 70. And that's what we have for these slides, for these formulas. There's really not much more complicated than that. So make sure that you are familiar with these 3 formulas and looking at those examples, and you'll be fine with finding the areas for triangles, trapezoids, and rhombi.